all for joining us for Shibolet's Tomorrow's News virtual event series. Today's event will focus on what the future holds for food and food-related technologies in 2021 and perhaps beyond. My name is Tal Karplus. I head Shibolet's food techs practice, and I would like, without further delay, to introduce the distinguished members of our panel. Left to right on my screen, which may not necessarily be the same arrangement on your screen. Anna Faberov, GM of PepsiCo Labs, Global Venture and Innovation. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Todd. Hi, everybody.
Jonathan Berger, CEO of the Kitchen Food Tech Hub. Hello, Jonathan.
Hey, Tal. Hey, everyone.
And Gofna Lis-Rubin, Open Innovation Manager, Israel, Awesome Nestle. Hi, Gofna.
Hi, Tal, and hi, everyone.
Thank you, Anna, Jonathan, and Gofna for joining me today. December started off with a bang, I think, for the food tech industry. We are halfway through December, but we can already talk about Singapore permitting the sale of cultured chicken, definitely a landmark for the slaughter-free meat industry. Rami Levy and Vertical Farms working together to grow organic crops on-premise. Remilk's fundraising round, the Prime Minister taking the time to visit Aleph Farms, and Savory going public with a pre-money valuation of $170 million and many more. So they're all making
in less than a month.
Yeah, and all making the daily headlines, not only for those of us who are really getting particular headlines for the food tech sector. So I guess we need to wait and see what the second half of December is bringing to us. I want to start off by asking each of our panelists to say a few words about their work and then share with us what they believe to be the three top food tech trends for 2021, impacting industry, consumer, or both. So who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
I can go first. So my name is Anna Faberov, and I lead the partnership and engagement with cutting-edge startup technologies across PepsiCo's global value chain, which is from seed to shelf, because we do really end-to-end. In terms of trends, so three trends that I think are worth mentioning. One is around last mile, with the kind of unprecedented growth of e-com driven by COVID. We will see, I know we are looking for more ways, so I think this is probably consistent with other CPG's needs. We look for new ways to disrupt the go-to market, right? So more ways to deliver our products to our consumers and customers without adding more trucks on the road. I guess the second one that we see is shift in consumer demand. Again, driven by e-com, but we see that in retail as well. So how do we satisfy consumer demand and fulfillment? What tech can help us put the right product on the right shelf at the right time and in the right channel? And I guess a third one would be sustainability, which has been a focus for many years and I think is here to stay. Anywhere from how do we grow our crops or make our products using less water? How do we, use sustainable packaging in general? Anything that will help us reduce our footprint.
Great. Gofna?
Okay, so hi, I'm Gofna Lis. I'm in charge of open innovation in Israel for Awesome and for Nestle. So I work both with Awesome here in the local level and also with the Nestle teams in various verticals and areas. So if you ask me about the leading trends, I fully agree with Anna on sustainability. But specifically, I said in food tech that it's really about plant-based. You mentioned that, Tal, in everything that is coming only in 2 weeks. This is for sure here to stay. We see the rise of ingredients. We see the rise of products, of technologies. I think we have only seen the beginning of that, and a lot of it is going to come in the next couple of years. It's not a trend. It's not only for 2021. It's a mega trend, and it's definitely here to revolutionize anything we do and eat. I think the other aspect is, in my opinion, personalized nutrition. Again, this is something that is very much in the rise. I think there is a start. We see a lot of technology development and others here in Israel for sure. This is fascinating. And again, I think it's just starting. I think, yeah, we're going to see way more of that in the next couple of years. Again, I also picked on the rise of e-commerce. We see how this has transformed over the last year. We don't know if the pace is going to be exactly what we've seen over the last couple of months, but it's definitely here to stay. It's definitely going to rise even further. So that's my pick of 3.
Thanks. Jonathan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Berger, and I'm the co-founder and the CEO of The Kitchen. We founded The Kitchen in 2014. And that time, food tech was not a common terminology. And since then, we've seen hundreds of companies. We invested in 18. Among these, we founded 6, meaning that we licensed technology from university and we founded a company. And about 5 out of the 18 are around alternative protein. And we perceive The Kitchen to be what's called a companies builder. So we are not only investing, but also very involved in building the companies. I fully agree with Gofna that this is here to stay. Those trends are not trends, they're here to stay. And I want to touch, I would try to add to everything that was mentioned, to add a few of my observations. So I think that on a very broader scale, we realize that global warming is a phenomena that all the globe should unite and try to address. And for sure, the food technology can be part of the solution that would reduce emissions, etc. And this is definitely here to stay. A subcategory of that is, thanks to COVID, or because of COVID, we learned that there is interaction between animal and people. And sometimes this interaction can be very hazardous. And we saw a huge rise since COVID in the alternative protein because of that connection. And also the trend among investors. This is a strong one. Just to add new things, I think that automation would be growing faster. So anything around Industry 4.0, robotics, restaurants that are using less labor. And an interesting one is the rise of vertical farming as a manner of save on the supply chain, or the shorten the supply chain. So we don't have to ship the product from Florida to Boston. We can grow it in Boston, as an example. Those are the 3 things that I saw since COVID.
Thank you. So I'll weigh my 2 cents. I mean, when it comes to premonitions, I'll have to do the right thing and go with upcycling. You know, we all know that food waste and loss is truly inconceivable. According to the UN, as of 2019, the world loses about $400 billion food, even before it reaches our plate. In the US only, it's about £1 per consumer each day, and is estimated to be between 30 and 40% of food production. So I personally hope that 2021 will give food upcycling the boost it needs to become much more significant. According to Forbes, the upcycling food waste industry is worth nearly $50 billion as of 2019. And I truly hope that governments will be more proactive in supporting those working in the food upcycling space, be that producers looking to tap in on the economic value of their byproducts, or minimizing their carbon footprint, or those trying to locate and upgrade byproducts and waste of others and transforming them into food. So as the saying said, the saying goes, one man's waste is another man's treasure. And maybe it's just my wishful thinking, but I'm placing my chips on upcycling for next year. So I want to touch a bit about on the consumer side. And Jonathan, let me start with a question I'd like to direct to you. COVID-19 was and is really having a tremendous effect on the food technology and industry, as well as the consumer side of the ecosystem. Health and sustainability movements are taking center stage, and we are looking at continuous innovation and increase in the consumption of milk, egg, and meat substitute. I know that you see your share of early stage as well as further developed technologies, and that on top of that, you also have the privilege of working closely with the Strauss Group, and you see products reaching their final form and also the market. So how far are we, would you say, from these substitute making mainstream, and what should we expect 2 to 5 years from now?
So I think that we are not that close, and everybody was excited around the declaration of the regulation authorities in Singapore. But when you look deep into this approval, it's a very, very early stage approval, and it will take time for such complicated technologies. And this is probably the one end of the story. However, we cannot underestimate the pressure that their food supply chain has on farming. And I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the pandemic, around March, many processing factories, meat processing factories, were closed because of employees working in very, I would say, condensed conditions and lots of sickness, etc. And that created a huge damage all along the supply chain, with slaughterhouses being closed. And I cannot describe what impact it had on the food industry. And everybody is recalculating their progress. And we see now many products that are hybrid products. So we are not going all the way to cultivated meat or plant-based meat, but we would see hybrid products that will be partially animal and partially cultivated or plant-based. And this will shorten the, I would say, the expectancy of products. And the other factor is I wouldn't call it consumer education. I don't like this term, but the lobbying and they convey the message, because some consumers are still, I would say, careful from consuming a cultivated meat, and it will take a lot of, I would say, marketing efforts to share with consumers the benefit of cultivated meat being clean from antibiotics, and just as an example. So to summarize, I think it would be a bit later than we all anticipate, number one. Number two, there are lots of, I would say, additional factors like regulations and marketing that have to play beside the technological breakthrough. And the third thing is I would say, the halfway through, which is the matrix product. And these products we would see rather sooner than later.
Yeah, and probably, I don't know, the scale up, the technological scale up is still something that also, I don't know how much of a showstopper that may be, but I know they're still struggling with the scale up of those technologies. So hopefully that can be addressed as well. Again, I don't know.
You're right. I did not mention it. I thought it was obvious. That's the core, obviously. You're right.
Okay, thanks. Gofna, we had a chance to discuss personalized nutrition ahead of this panel, and I know that you're passionate not only about personalized food, but also about personalization as a holistic approach to well-being. And can I ask you to share your assessment on how close and personal you're expecting nutrition to be in the near future, and which personalization trends you believe will also impact what or how we consume food?
Yeah, you're right. So we did have a passionate discussion about it, I know, and I am fascinated about it. To start with your question, how close is that? Well, I think it's still going to be a long way, and it's not a one-time target. It's something that is going to be continuously evolving in the future for sure. So clearly, personalization is there in a lot of various aspects of our lives, not only about food. But when I talk about personalized nutrition, then I think it is really the notion of personalization of well-being beyond food. And these verticals, I think, are very broad. So it's not only food; it involves almost anything, starting from sports and exercise to sleep to rest to almost any other aspects, all the way to fortification, medication, and all that. So I think it's very, very broad. What I find also fascinating is the understanding, that before we thought it was about having one kind of answer per consumer. And today we understand that it's not about one answer or one picture. It's really about a movie about each consumer, which really addresses every aspect of the consumer, any life event, any situation. So it's about providing this movie of answers to the consumer's needs and to the consumer's um, um, wishes and what the consumer wants to receive. And I think another important maybe thing to start realizing in that is that it doesn't only involve our history and our present situation, but it will take us all the way to the future. So it will be about also analyzing what could happen at various situations and then giving the solutions to the consumer to prevent what could happen in the future or to ensure that the future is optimal for the consumer. So I just find it very fascinating. I think related also to the situation, to COVID, to anything that is happening, things are really being accelerated. And why we're talking about it today more than before is because things are really changing. First, in the minds of consumers, there is the development of DNA, microbiome, all the different aspects that make consumers understand that they're unique, that they need different solutions than other consumers. Second, consumers, and again, accelerating in the common situation, is the consumers' affinity to technology. So clearly starting with millennials, but more and more, lots of other groups of consumers have also access to technology. And then there is the consumers' understanding about nutrition. I think in the current situation, we all understand so much better how much we have to take care of our bodies. So all those are growing, but also technologies are developing. So we talked about DNA microbiome, but non-invasive technologies, things we can do today only with our phone. This is just amazing. I think we all know amazing, even Israeli companies that do that. And what we can do with our phone today is unprecedented, but I think in a couple of years from now, it will be amazing. And it's not just phones, of course, many other devices. And the other aspect that is changing is the availability to consumer, the e-commerce, direct to consumer, all those kind of channels. So it's not just about getting what you want. It's about the where and the when, and this is just changing constantly. So I think it's gradually evolving. We see that really transforming. And maybe another interesting aspect is about the industry. Before, I think we all thought one time that we will have to make individualized products addressing the different consumers. When I was a factory manager and you'd ask me that, I would say this is just not technically possible. But I think it's not really about that. It's really about understanding that the consumers will be able to make the selection, the combination of the different solutions, be it food, but be it all the other solutions, to what the consumer actually needs based on all the different inputs that we can actually get. So that's my 2 cents about the topic, but I can go about it for hours, as you realize.
No, thanks. Anna, I'm apologizing for the very down-to-earth question. Industry 4.0, it's expected, to disrupt, and already has disrupted industrialization of food production, but would it also affect us consumers? And in hope that the answer is yes, then how?
That's a great question. Actually, I mean, you would think that Industry 4.0 is with us for a long time because it's a buzzword for so long. But when you think of it, we are still just at the tip of the iceberg, right? It's such an early trend because it touches core processes and capabilities, and it takes a lot of time to impact them, right? So although it feels like it's already transforming, I think we're just really barely touching the surface, which means that it will take time to realize the full potential and to get the downstream impact on consumers. But I'm happy to share a few examples of things that we do today, so pilots or innovation that we bring today that will impact consumers in the future. One example, again, using more buzzwords, but we're using data and machine learning models to reduce waste, right? Anything from detecting defects in production to water wastage throughout the whole manufacturing process, right? So those will influence our footprint, which will impact consumer and the planet, obviously. Another kind of trend, which is part of the Industry 4.0, is using sensors, right? So using sensors to reduce the disruption to operation and minimize downtime, right? And that will impact consumers by giving them a variety of products and securing the availability of the product, you know, kind of not disrupting that flow. We're building automation, so that will be a third example. We're building automation for our e-com operations, and that will allow us to give consumers, again, a bigger variety of products with shorter delivery windows, right? Because you optimize all of your last mile. So those are some of the immediate things that we're doing now, and all of them kind of impact consumers quickly, but the full potential of Industry 4.0, I mean, imagine how long did it take us to see Industry 1.0, right? That was the water and steam power, right? How long did it take us to see the impact of that? Those are such long processes. So I think there's more exciting things to come.
Right. So, at the end of the pandemic changed not only, how we do what we do, but also it changed our consumers' preferences. As more of us took up home cooking, ordering in, also looking for food and food supplements, and supporting, which we support not only our immune system, but overall our physical condition and our mental health and state as well. So, Jonathan, COVID-19 and stress and anxiety that it brought with it, as I said, challenged not only our physical, but also our mental state. And soon followed by the realization of many that now more than ever, a healthier way of life is the right way to follow. But the question is this merely a trend, or is there more to it? Is healthy eating here to stay?
Yes, it is. And I think that our sense is that COVID just pushed an old tendency that was there for the last 5-10 years, and I think that probably one of the factors that caused this awareness of what we eat, and we've seen consumers, and I think that the CPGs, my colleagues from the large CPGs, Nestle's and PepsiCo know better than I, that I think that internet and Facebook and social network have been impacting the way that consumers look at food for the last 10 years. And, there is a story about, how a 16-year-old girl changed the formula in one of the, I would say, consumer goods product, not to mention names, that the R&D people were reluctant to change for ages. And then she read something on the label that was not good for her, and she started a campaign on Facebook, and the company had to change this ingredient after 50 or something years that they didn't change it. And so what I'm trying to say is that social network, the awareness of what we put into our body, you see the term I use is not what we eat, what we put into our body. Those things, have been here for some time now. And boosting your immune system, our immune system, and healthy eating, like many other, I would say, phenomenals, were pushed forward by the pandemic. But it's not a new thing. And as investors, we are very careful when we see startups that come to us and they say, I have this solution for COVID, and now with COVID, I can do this and that, and I've been around some time, and I was around after September 11. I remember every startup overnight became a homeland security startup. So we have to be careful on those things, and to see that we make investments based on real innovation and I would say strong technologies. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thanks. So I think we can agree that whether it caused recession or created opportunities, that COVID-19 has brought some changes that are probably here to stay with us for a very long time. Anna, with your permission, I'd like to shift focus now and talk about the future of the industry, what is yet to be and what is already here. AI, machine learning, and data are all transformative technologies. How are you approaching them in PepsiCo? And if you could share a few examples.
Yeah, happy to share. So again, like Industry 4.0, this is a big revolution. It's not something that will impact us for 1 to 3 years. There's still a big gap between the academia and the actual application of those technologies. So we are in the beginning of a process. It's a very long journey. Obviously, we already see, or we already leverage some of those technologies in our business to gain better insights, to take better informed and objective decisions. One example I'm happy to share is around agriculture, right? So we've created, actually with an Israeli startup, a model that takes a lot of indications from 2,000 fields in Europe, and what it predicts is yield drivers. So how can you grow more potatoes, playing with different kind of parameters and different inputs to the field, right? And this is kind of an amazing project that we're now in 2021 scaling globally. If I look for a commercial example, right? So, which is relevant for COVID, but always important, predicting stores and restaurants that will open or close, predicting what are the high value restaurants and retail stores, predicting account churn, right? So just helping our frontline teams going to the right places and providing them the right data versus, I guess, intuition, knowledge, or any other kind of subjective experience. And the example, I mean, there's many more examples even on the outskirts, right? So even the supporting functions, let's say, from automating legal document reviews. You can use machine learning today to redline basic agreements like NDAs or SOWs or other legal documents. You can predict macroeconomic growth, right? Taking different parameters and like considering your financial investments in different countries. So it really touches every aspect. And again, I think the potential is huge. We're not even hitting 1% of what it can go.
Right. Thanks. Kofna, managing open innovation for Awesome Nestle, how do you strategize global innovation and balance between the global and local trends? And we all know that consumer preferences are obviously dominated by both global as well as local trends. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I think it's a very important question in the perspective of open innovation. How do we hit the strategic areas that are needed, and how do we address that? And I think the strategy fit is really critical for the relevance of the activity that I'm doing. So clearly, we have to look at the strategy that is there from the company, understanding what is needed, and then finding the right answers and solutions to address the biggest needs. Clearly, when we're looking at the mega trends and all those were mentioned, fitting that with the strategy of the company, this is where we have higher chances to succeed, to meet something that is more disruptive, that can be, a new platform of opportunity for the company, and not necessarily, let's say, new products. So this is clearly, in our focus, and more and more with the open innovation activity, when I grow to understand the specific strategies and needs, be it at the corporate level, at the zone level, at a market level. This is where the activity can be more effective. I think the other interesting play of open innovation, looking at the relations between the corporate and the local activity, is how to really synergize between both. And I think what we're doing today in open innovation is really bringing in this synergy. And this synergy comes from our wish here in OSEM, which is, a leading food industry and company here in Israel. Our wish first, and then also the expectation from us to be almost the sandbox of open innovation for the corporate. And this is just great. It means that first, we rely on our agility, I would say, as an understatement here in the market, and our ability to take things and try them on a fast track. We call it today test and learn. So we test and learn a lot in operations. We have introduced quite a few pilots this year in operations where we can very quickly agree on what is it that is relevant and bring it in and try it. And we do that. And we also have test and learn experiences with consumers. And from Nestle, this is more and more expected that we do that, and we show then the rest of the company what benefit it can bring, or maybe it can't, but depends on the trial. And I think the other play in that is that we can actually rely on the huge amount of expertise, science and technology, and other expertise, be it marketing, be it regulatory, be it food safety, anything else, that we can bring to the game. And sometimes I'm just amazed, with finding the right experts and immediately understanding, what really stands behind the science and technology, getting the support that we need, and then agreeing, what is the right way to approach. So I think this approach of the local strength and the agility, this expertise and the science that we can bring, and then the fast test and learning, this is something that really works very well for open innovation. So we started this activity of open innovation. I started about a year ago, but I think already with the projects that we have ongoing and the approach that is shaping, we are very capable now to share that with Nestle and see what is it that we deploy further from our trials here.
Interesting. Thanks. So a recent report predicts that by 2040, which is not that far away from now, but most of the meat we consume will be slaughter-free. So I don't know, arguably, but let's assume that most of it. I think the report says 60%. And I recall having dinner with my wife and three daughters a few weeks ago, and talking to them and a bit about the work, the type of technologies that I'm seeing. And I told them, it's not unlikely that when you as parents sit with your children and tell them that you were actually eating a steak coming from a real cow or chicken, they're going to be amazed to hear that that's how it was for you as children. So with that thought in mind, I want to ask each of you if you would take 10 or 20 years from today, and what do you think would be the most incredible thing that we will see on our plate, or if you like, the way that we consume or buy food that goes beyond what most of us would imagine today? Jonathan, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I have to admit that Tal gave me the questions, a few days in advance. So I was kind of debating with myself, what is it? Because it's a tough one, 10 years from now. And, I defer to describe the background or what would be behind the food itself that we would eat and we would have on our plate, because I think that probably the food itself would not dramatically change. It would have more innovative product, more colorful, more healthier product, etc. But preparing for this question, Tal, I want to share with the audience my strong belief and my strong belief is fermentation. And I think that, and I don't know if it's 10 years or 20 years, and I don't know if all the meat, probably not even most of the meat, or eggs or milk, but I think fermentation is the one word for all of us to remember, and this technology will transform the food industry. And fermentation is basically a process that some of it occurs naturally. And for example, beer and yogurt are fermented product. Those are like natural processes that happen. But most of the drug industry or the pharmaceutical is based on fermentation, in which an organism is programmed to obtain a specific protein. And I think that if we are able, as humanity, to scale up these processes that right now are very expensive, but and that's a huge effort to do that. It's really, really huge. But as a whole, would be able to reduce the cost of these processes, we will see more and more products, even eggs. You know, Clara Food is a company that produces egg using fermentation, using biotech processes. So lots of the, I would say, the animal industry would be replaced by these products. They would definitely be healthier. I'm not sure when the cost parity, meaning that the price would be equal to the, I would say, the processed animal will be the same, but it would definitely be something that we will see dramatic change in. And this is my bet for the next 10 years.
Great, thanks. Anna?
So I don't know if it's an actual, I guess, forecast or more wishful thinking, but I would like to see a significant reduction in packaging, right? So I know many companies like us are working towards that. PepsiCo actually committed to 100% recycled plastics and beverages in 2022, which is very close in 9 EU markets. So hopefully 10 years from now, we'll be able to scale that significantly to our entire portfolio and then reducing packaging on everywhere, right? Because that will drive other implications on carbon emission and kind of, virgin plastic versus used plastic, and it's kind of endless recycling, which will be great for the planet, I hope.
Okay. Gofna?
So, yeah, the fact is that what I think we found almost hard to imagine a couple of years ago, like precision fermentation that Jonathan just mentioned, or cultured meat, which we just discussed about. This is just amazing to think that those kind of things sounded so futuristic to all of us, consumers in general, and us in the industry a really short while ago. And now we all understand that this is going to be part of the future. So I think whatever is already imaginable is not incredible, right? I mean, it was unimaginable maybe 20 years ago that something will rise like an iPhone, right? We never thought about it, and there it is, or Netflix, or even an espresso capsules, when I have to talk about Nestle. So I, try to imagine what is it that we cannot imagine. When I did this exercise, I came naturally again to the area of personalization, because I think really in that area, for me, it's hard to imagine what it will be like. And I think it will cover anything. It will cover the consumer. It will cover how will we make our choices of what is it that we're going to consume, food or anything, related to that. It will cover how we get it, how we prepare the food. You mentioned it's going to be in a plate. You know what? I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be in a plane anymore, right? So I think all that is really unimaginable, but I think this is where it's going to be really incredible. It's going to evolve, and it is going to be incredible.
Okay, so we'll touch base again, hopefully before, but also in 20 years, and see who was closer with your answer.
Wait, Tal, you didn't tell us what you think.
So I have the privilege, but I'll tell you something else, that how COVID has disrupted my food, my own personal consumption, and what I'm not going back to. So March and April, most of the time I work from home. I save the time not driving back and from the office. And I used my extra time to start off beekeeping as a pastime. I have a couple of hives. So one thing I'm not going back to is buying honey at the store. That's my non going back to COVID post it.
That's great. Ship us some.
Yeah, ship us some honey. Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay, so Governor Anna, Jonathan, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today and offering us plenty of food for thought. Wishing you all and all of us who joined our event a very happy, fruitful, and productive new year. Happy Hanukkah and best of season greetings. Take care and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tal.
Thanks,
It has been a pleasure.